Given that we discussed this character, let's continue with problem set 3. And yes, we actually did discuss Hatsune Miku in an introduction to uh, critical thinking philosophy course at a university that is public. Okay, well, actually, it's not public, it's at UC. Okay, fine. Let's begin. Section A, true or false claims again. You guys missed these? I missed these. 1. If a deductive argument has a false conclusion, then one of its premises must be false. And the answer to this one is true. If an argument is deductive, then the conclusion is guaranteed to be true if all premises are true. There you go. The next one. If a deductive argument has a true conclusion, then all of its premises are true. False. Example, P1. All fish are mortal. P2. Barack. Did my professor... You know what? I'm going to show this. Yes, the professor really wrote Barack Obama is a fish. Is this guy for real? Barack Obama is a fish. Okay, so back to what I was talking about. I can't believe it. Barack Obama is a fish. Therefore, the conclusion would be Barack Obama is mortal. In a sense, these is considered a deductive argument. However, and since the conclusion is true that Barack Obama is mortal, yet the premises is false, then the answer is that it's false. The way I did it with a table. But this is how the professor expected you to answer. Well, Mark, this is how the teacher's assistant expected you to answer them, because she graded them. If a probabilistic argument has a false conclusion, then one of its premises must be false. The answer to this one is false as well. Why? Here's an example. P1 is almost every lottery ticket is a loser. P2. This ticket... No, conclusion. This ticket is a loser. And this is technically a probabilistic argument. And the reason we can say that this is a probabilistic and not a... and it has a false conclusion is there is a slight chance, minuscule in reality, that the ticket is a winning lotto ticket. Okay, that works. 4 is if all of the premises of a deductive argument are true, then its conclusion is true as well. And the answer is true. If you have all true premises for a deductive argument that is valid, okay, then the conclusion must be true. Once you add in false premises, then something is up. Then it could be true or false. So since all deductive valid arguments with only true conclusions will have with only true premises will have true conclusions. And then 5, if all of the premises of a probabilistic argument are false, then the conclusion is false as well. And the answer to this one is false, okay? How do I know that? Well, let's look at it. P1, almost all dogs have exactly 3 legs. What are you talking about? And yet we conclude from this that Fido, the name of the dog apparently, has exactly 3 legs. Is false as well. Technically speaking, Fido does have exactly 3 legs. Maybe it was amputated, or he lost it in a car accident. Then even though you have a false premise, you can technically have a true conclusion. And you need to stop pressing Alt. 6. The conclusion of every bad argument is false. Well, the answer is false. I could do the famous, you said every, therefore if I find one exception, then your answer is false. But that's boring. Let's look at a hilarious argument. The same one we did earlier. P1. All lizards are mortal. P2. Mark Zuckerberg is a lizard. Therefore, come on. Therefore, conclusion, we'll say Mark Zuckerberg is mortal. Technically, Mark Zuckerberg is mortal. I don't think anyone's going to deny that. Unless you buy into the Walt Disney theory, in which case you might be able to make a case for it. But I don't buy into that theory for a few reasons. Therefore, we're just going to assume that he is mortal. This is a bad argument because it fails the validity test of Mark Zuckerberg being a lizard. He's not a lizard. And yet, the conclusion here is a true statement. Good. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm pretty sure my classmates were conspiracy theorists. The things they said, man, was hilarious. Okay, 7. Everyone that has a dog, not all of them, obviously, just some of them, is a good person. Alex is a good person. So, Alex... Oh, come on. 3, 2, 1, I'm back. Alex is a good... No. So, Alex has a dog. Well, you see. Let's say everyone has a dog is a good person. Alex is a good person Alex is a dog. So, in a sense, it's... Alex is a good person. So... No, let's rephrase it. If Alex is a good person, then Alex... My bad. Everyone who has a dog is a good person. Oh, my bad. So what I need to do here is to prove that the following arguments are non-deductive using the possibility test. Well, that's simple. Everyone has a good dog. Everyone that has a dog is a good person. Alex is a good person, so Alex has a dog. I can postulate a situation in which case the conclusion Alex has a dog does not come true in that everyone that has a good dog is a good person, Alex is a good person, but Alex does not have a dog. How I can do that is with the square rectangle test, where every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square. But I could just say the example of a possibility is that Alex does not have a dog despite being a good person. which is pretty logical. 8. Almost every time someone has an ace and a 9 of hearts, they will win a round of blackjack. Okay? Joanna has an ace and 9 of hearts, so she will win this round of blackjack. Okay, I can imagine why this might work. Let's think about this one, okay? And the reason we can do this is that, let's say, suppose that somebody has an ace and a 9 of hearts. That adds up to 20 points. So they could just stop betting. Makes sense. But there is always that chance that someone gets the 21. Okay? So, and that will mean that Joanna will lose. Because even though she has all stipulations to have the almost every time someone has X, they win, that almost makes it so that there is a possibility that she doesn't win. And that's why we are the Emperor. 12. If Will does... Oh, wait. We can't do that one because there's a mistake in 12, as the professor said. So we'll do 13. As this one actually makes sense. Either the basic income law will increase tax rates or put the government further into debt. If it increases tax rates, then everyone will be unhappy right now. True. And if it puts the government further into debt, then future generations will be unhappy. Either way, someone will eventually be unhappy, which is true. And basic income law should be approved only if no one will eventually be unhappy. So the basic income law should not be approved. Alright, so first, how do we do these? Obviously, we gotta put these into schematizations, okay? Well, before that, we have to say A, B, C, D, so on, so forth. Okay? Good. So let's begin with that, shall we? What is A? If you read it, you get that A is equal to the basic income law will increase tax rates. B is equal to the basic income law will put the government further into debt. C will be equal to everyone will be unhappy right now. D will equal to future generations will be unhappy. E will be equal to someone will eventually be unhappy. And you stop pressing Alt when I wanted to write a period. And F will be the basic income law should be approved. Now that we have our statements, let's begin. Premise 1 will be either A or B, and that's our premise. Premise 2 will be if A, then C. So in other words, if the basic income law will increase tax rate, then everyone will be unhappy right now, which is true. Premise. P3 will be if B, then D. It's a premise. And let's look at it up. If the basic income law will put the government further into debt, then future generations will be unhappy. So that's how that is read when you're doing it out loud. P4 will be implicit if open parentheses C or D close parentheses comma then E as a premise, or if everyone will be unhappy right now or future generations will be unhappy, then someone will eventually be unhappy. Makes sense. And P5 it will be if F then not E, which is a premise. And the conclusion we have, based on the writing, is not F, which is the basic income law should not be approved. So now that we have our conclusion that we're looking for, let's find the steps to it. So S1, if you look at your handy dandy cheat sheet, you will be able to write C or D. And the way you do that is with premise 1, premise 2, and premise 3, using CD, which is constructive dilemma, which is the either A or B, if A then C, if B then D, therefore either C or D. Makes sense? Up next, S2 will be E, and we get E based on P4, which is if C or D, then E. And since we have C or D, then we have E. And then it'll be premise, and it'll be step 1, because that's what we're using to confirm it. Step 1, and that'll be modus ponens, which is if A then B, A therefore B. Then the next one, S3, if E then not F, should be P5, and that would be contrapositive. In a sense, if E, which is P5 here, then not F. So if F, then not E. If E, then not F. So which is pretty logical. And since we do have E, we do have it, it is not F, which in a sense will be S2, S3, and that is the if A, then B, A, therefore B, modus ponens. Wonderful! And then finally, we need to do the counterexample method. If you're wondering why I'm not going so deep into this, is because if you looked at the study guide video, we did a bunch of these, okay? We don't need to do more of these. That's just wasting time. We need to prove that the following arguments are not deductive using the well-known counterexample method. So let's look at number 14. If the levels of carbon 12 in the first 2 layers of the atmosphere are increasing, comma, then the average global temperature is increasing. And sure enough, the average global temperature is increasing. So the levels of carbon 12 in the first 2 layers of the atmosphere are increasing. In a sense, this is flawed logic. Let's look at the actual schematization of this, okay? A will be the levels of carbon 12 in the first 2 layers of the atmosphere are increasing. And then B, the average global temperature is increasing. Therefore, the way we schematize this, if A then B, B therefore A. Now, I could just say that this is the rule of not denying the antecedent. No, it is. It's confirming the composite, I believe it's called. B, therefore A, which is not actually a valid argument. Now, our counterexamples will vary, but let's do if Bacon wrote William Shakespeare's Hamlet, then Bacon is a great author. Bacon is a great author. That does not mean that Bacon wrote William Shakespeare's Hamlet. Therefore, there's your counterexample. The other, number 15, and the final one for problem set 3, the androgenic climate change hypothesis is credible only if most scientists are unbiased. And most scientists are unbiased only if the funding for their research comes from unbiased sources. But the androgenic climate change hypothesis is not credible. So the funding for most scientists' research does not come from unbiased sources. Okay? So in a sense, the way that is argued is that A is equal to the androgenic climate change hypothesis is credible. B will be most scientists are unbiased. And C, the funding for most scientists' research comes from unbiased sources. Ooh, I don't trust you, but sure. P1 is if A, then B. P2 will be if B, then C. And then P3 will be not A, therefore not C. P4 will be not C. Conclusion will be not C. Not space C. Now, if you already know this, and you know you can't have this, because this here, so P1 and P2 will just become the following. If A, then C. Not A does not mean not B. So, for example, if there is a fire in this room, then there is air in this room. There is no fire in this room, therefore there is no air in this room. That's not a valid argument. It's really not. Now, the way you want to be phrasing it, if it's a counterexample for this, you want to do one that has multiple steps that follows the exact same premises. But this is just the translation of these two. This is what happens when you make these into one. You can do that. But if you don't want to do that, then there's a different example, then please use that instead. I don't have an example, as even the answer sheet doesn't come with one, so that one will be up to your discretion, but that is how you would do them. And I'm pretty sure this one is not. I'm pretty sure one of these is, this is confirming the antecedent, and this is denying the composite, I believe it's called. I'll have to recheck the names. You know what? Let's look them up right now. Modules, and the answer will be. You know what? I'll give them to you at the end of the video. So now let's look at problem set 4. Section A, true or false, yada yada yada. The best explanation of the evidence is guaranteed to be correct. False. Why is that false? Because there's always a chance that the best explanation is the correct one, given that best explanation pretty much exists because of the information we have. We can always be introduced to more information, or if we want to look at the one that's given to us by the professor, there is always a chance that the best explanation is not the correct one, which is true. If the best explanation is the only explanation, there is always a chance for a mere coincidence. Therefore, it's false. 2. If explanation 1 has more explanatory power than explanation 2, so in a sense, E1 is greater than E2, then E1 is necessarily a better explanation than E2. False. While explanatory power is the most important criteria, it's not the final say. As a matter of fact, there's other criteria, such as background knowledge, simplicity, and even testability. Okay? Therefore, it does not have the full say, meaning it is false. 3 is every argument that starts with correlation between x and y and infers that x causes y is a bad argument. False. While correlation does not require causation, it can support it. 4. Every random sample is representative of a larger population. False. The only truly representative samples are random samples. However, there is always a chance that your random sample is just not good enough. It could just be chance. It could be you picked the wrong location. It could be that the computer gave you a bad list of people, so on and so forth. And then 5. If X and Y are analogous, then X and Y are similar in every respect. False. The one that we had in the class is that universes are mechanical. Watches are mechanical. Watches have a creator, therefore universes have a creator. However, no one here would honestly try to tell me that a watch and a universe are the same thing. No, the universe is much bigger than a watch. Therefore, the answer is false. In other words, this is once more a case of 5 falses in a row. Great. Section B. Support the following passage. Suppose the following passage contains an inference to the best explanation. Lay out the premises and at least 3 serious possible explanations. Identify which premises are evidence and which are information. Evaluate each serious possible explanation according to the 4 criteria discussed in class. Finally, discern which explanation is the best and explain why it's the best. If there is no best explanation, please explain why. Alright. This one is going to be a long one, so prepare yourself. Maybe pause the video and get some snacks. Get a cup of water. But make sure you have your pen and paper out. This is going to help you a lot. Washington Secret Service officials suggested Monday that a dramatic suicide rather than an assassination attempt was the most likely motivation behind the crash on the White House South Lawn of a light plane piloted by Frank Corder, a 38-year-old truck driver with a history of alcohol and drug problems. Seriously, these words, these are from the assignment in class. This isn't me making anything up, okay? This is literally from the assignment. But if read out of context, it could sound like I'm saying something, like I'm talking about a real person. No, this didn't happen. At least I don't think it happened. I hope this didn't happen. I haven't looked it up yet. The planes dive into the White House South Lawn at 1:49 a.m. Monday does not appear directed toward the president. Okay. Secret Service spokesman Carl Mayer told reporters. Then we get to paragraph 2. The plane contained no explosives or other weapons, Mayer noted. Okay? And investigators have found no evidence that Corder had any political grievance against President Clinton, nor that he had ever threatened the Clintons. Wait, is this a real thing? I have no idea. I'm gonna... You know what? Let's check it out. Frank Corder. Clinton... No, it's a White House South Lawn. Wait, no way this is a real... Frank Eugene Corder was an American truck driver. He stole a Cessna 150 late on September 11, 1994, and crashed the stolen aircraft into the South Lawn of the White House early in September. This was a real event. You know, it kind of makes sense why I didn't know about this one. I was not born yet. Holy crud. Well, that's no good. That's crazy, though. His crash site was on the South Lawn, and the president's bedroom was here at the time. Look at that. I don't even know if this is correct. I'll have to check this later, but look at how close that was. It's crazy. Okay, but now, let's get back to topic. We need to pass this exam, obviously. Okay. The Clintons investigators did discover that Corder, who lived in Perryville, MD, northeast of Baltimore, had separated 3 weeks ago from his wife and had been distraught over the death of his father last spring. Okay. Let's check this one out. P1 is a light plane crashed on the White House South Lawn, and we'll determine if that's evidence or information later. P2 will be the pilot had a history of alcohol and drug problems. P3 will be the plane contained no explosives or other weapons. Maybe. Just maybe. We never know. No, let's expand this a little bit more to the left. Okay, now we can write a bit more in the space. We can write a lot more in the space now, actually. Good. No other weapons, which we'll explain that's evidence or information later. P4 will be the pilot had no problems with the presidential family. Okay. P5 will be the pilot had separated 3 weeks ago from his wife. P6 will be the pilot was distraught over the death of his father last spring. So before we continue, we need to know what is evidence and what is information. As we know in this class, evidence is something we want explained. Information is something we don't want explained. It's just information that helps us. A light plane crashed in the White House on South Lawn. Why do we want to know about this? Yes, we do. It's evidence. The pilot had a history of alcohol and drug problems. This is information. We don't need to explain why. We just know that he had it. The plane contained no explosive or other weapons. That's evidence. We need to explain why. Pilot had no problems with the presidential family. That's information. Alright. The next one is that the pilot had separated 3 weeks ago from his wife. That's information. Alright. I'm gonna get carpal tunnel from this. I can already feel it. The pilot was distraught over the death of his father last spring. That's information. So in reality, we only need 2 pieces of evidence explained. Interesting, because everything else is information. unique, I gotta tell you. This is a unique circumstance. So now, let's start concluding things. The conclusion one is the pilot crashed the plane as a dramatic suicide. C2 is the pilot crashed the plane as a failed assassination attempt on, and then C3 is the pilot crashed the plane accidentally. Oh, cool! Those were the three I did. So I got this one right. Now we have to evaluate these. Okay, let's evaluate them. Explanatory power. P1. Very likely. For P3. Very likely. This is for C1, by the way. Next, we have background knowledge, which is regarding P2, P5, and P6. Likely given P2, P5, P6. Okay? The simplicity, simple, but fairly. It's fairly simple in that his death was probably just, an accident. That's not something that assumes maliciousness or anything else. I did write that it was not very simple, simply because it's crazy how someone stole a plane, but it's been done before. I did not condone it, but it happened. And then testability / predictive power is makes predictions such as there possibly being a suicide note or his family being worried about him lately. That's how you'll do that one. For C2, we're going to have something similar. P1, explanatory power. You'll know that for P1, this will be very likely. However, for P3, it is not likely at all, because the plane had no explosives or other weapons, so it's not likely that he was trying to make any attempt on someone's life. Then we have background knowledge. Not likely, given P4. Then we have simplicity. Fairly simple. And then for for testability / predictive power, makes predictions such as the pilot telling others his plan or writing his plan down somewhere. Let's spell that correctly now, shall we? And that is the good one. Now, of course, you have C3 as well, which is explanatory power. For P1, not likely. And then for P3, very likely. Okay? So in a sense, the only one that has a very likely for both is C1, but we have the other test first. Background knowledge. Given what we know about the world, we know planes can crash, therefore likely, but only somewhat. Then we have simplicity. This one is fairly simple, because if you're just assuming it was an accident, the plane just crashed accidentally, then so be it. It happens, it sucks, whatever. And then testability / predictive power. We can make predictions such as the pilot yelling Mayday over the radio prior to the crash. And I'll put quotation marks around the mayday just so you know which word I'm talking about specifically. And if we analyze these, C1 is the clear winner. Has the most explanatory powers. It conforms to our background knowledge. It's very simple and makes testable predictions that have not been disconfirmed. Now, that doesn't mean that C1 is correct, mind you. However, based on what we know, it's likely to be the correct answer. After all, this is considered an ongoing investigation, according to the rule set. Next off, we have... Okay, what's the next one? That's the causes one. We'll do this one. Number 9, and then we'll call it there. I know that technically we're skipping 7 and 8, but in all honesty, it's the same steps, just with a different wording. And that you're doing a different kind of argument, but you're also doing the same thing. And then the other one, which is the causal argument, is you're just telling people what the sample is, what the targeted population is, and why it may not represent the targeted population. And it doesn't help you to know that specific one. It helps you to know how to do it. And seeing as you probably know how to do it, given that if you're watching this one, you probably watched the other 2 study sessions. So we're just going to skip to 9 and get this one done. 9. Suppose your neighbor asks you to help pay for his medical expenses, and you decline. Depending on the situation, you might be a jerk for declining. Okay? But it shouldn't be illegal for you to decline. It would be completely unjust of him to say, lock you up in his basement, but the government asking you to pay for someone else's medical expenses, that's taxation, by the way, is no different. Hence, can't spell today, the government shouldn't tax people to help pay for other people's legitimate medical expenses. This is an analogous argument, by the way. I believe this is an analogous argument. So P1 is your neighbor asking you to help pay for his medical expenses is analogous to the government asking you to help pay for someone else's medical expenses. In both cases, the person might not be able to afford it on their own. The medical expenses might be for legitimate reasons. You are probably a jerk to decline if you can afford it. No, you're not a jerk if you decline, even if you can afford it. What is this author talking about? And then the second one, P2, is you shouldn't be legally required to help pay for your neighbor's medical expenses. Therefore, your conclusion will be C. You shouldn't be legally required to pay the government money to help them pay for other people's medical expenses. You know what? I can agree. And that is the entire class homework assignments. A bit abridged because I don't have time for all of them, and also because we did them already, just in different forms in the other ones. Therefore, I want to thank all of you so much for watching, and I hope you all enjoyed. Study. Make sure you pass your classes.